Hey guys and girls, hope you guys are having a great week and had a brilliant Christmas and New Year. So 2016 is over, and like me, I'm sure many of you are glad that 2016 has come and gone. It has been an absolutely insane year. Now, there were some games that came out in 2016 that had high expectations, were overhyped, but that were incredibly disappointing and just did not deliver on the promises that they made. So these are the games that were the most disappointing for me in 2016. Coming in at number 3 is Mafia 3 by 2K Games, released on the 7th of October. Now, this game had so much potential. The setting of the game was brilliant. It's set in 1968 in a city called New Bordeaux, which is heavily based on New Orleans, and you play as the main character, Lincoln Clay. Now, the setting was fantastic. It's set in a really interesting time period in American history, which is right in the middle of the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights movement, and it's such an interesting backdrop to have for a video game. And the musical soundtrack in this was fantastic, some of the best music that was produced at that time. The story was interesting as well. It's a story of revenge and the mafia, and it's really interesting. Lincoln Clay as a character as well was quite well developed in terms of his background and the effects that the Vietnam War had on him and his family and that kind of thing. So it had a lot of potential, and the first 2 hours of the game were fantastic. The cinematics were amazing. The atmosphere of the city was really well sort of fleshed out. It was really interesting and really gripping. But unfortunately, once we got into the nitty-gritty of the gameplay, we got into the main bulk of the story, that's when this game became hollow at its core and had no heart. A lot of the main missions felt like side missions. They were boring, they were repetitive. You were doing the same things again and again and again, and you were doing the same thing that you were doing 2 hours into the game as opposed to 15 hours into the game. You were just doing the same kinds of missions, the same kinds of activities, and unfortunately it just screamed of lazy gameplay development on the part of 2K Games, and that is why Mafia 3 deserves the 3rd spot on my list. Number 2, The Division. Now, no one more than I wanted this game to be successful and to be everything that it promised. The hype for this game was so huge. It was released, obviously, as you guys know, by Ubisoft on the 8th of March, a day after my birthday. And, it was touted to be, an online-only, third-person, open-world shooter set in a derelict New York City that's been infested by a virus, and you are a crack team of agents, sleeper cell agents, that are to go in and save the day. Now, it had so much potential, this game, and, the gameplay was fun, I'll admit it. The abilities that you had playing with your friends online was great, and the first sort of 2 hours again of this game were a lot of fun. But once you got into it and you got into the heart of it, again, it was hollow at its center. Most of the map was cut off, hidden behind paywalls. Large chunks of the city you couldn't investigate. Underground as well was hidden behind DLC, and you only had Manhattan as an area to explore, so you couldn't even explore the whole of New York City. It just felt like a lot of the content had been left out on the part of Ubisoft to be charged later for more money, and I just hate that kind of practice. As well, the weapons were fine and were fun, but a lot of the RPG elements to it really sucked. This whole obsession with beanies and hats and gear and things, like, they didn't really seem to do a massive degree of difference in terms of leveling your character. They weren't different enough between characters as well. In that way, Destiny is definitely superior to The Division. And the story, there was no story. The characters were really boring. They were one-dimensional. You didn't really even get to know your character, who this person was, what their motivations were. There was just no heart, no soul to the game, and it was really disappointing. And even the the enemies that you fought were very samey. There weren't any major sort of boss fights that were interesting. The final boss fight itself was so disappointing. Hell, it was a helicopter, and it was just so disappointing to play, and it was just such an anticlimactic way to end the game. So this game really is it's not worth the asking price point that it was charged at. It wasn't worth the 50 or 60 pound that it was being charged for. As well, it's not really a game, I don't think it's a game that you will enjoy playing by yourself. I think it's a game that you need to play with your friends to get the most experience out of it. So if you like your single player experience, then The Division probably is not for you. And the online mode of the Dark Zone as well, the online multiplayer PvP, was really just an opportunity for people just to be douchebags. And there really wasn't any sort of team cooperation or collaboration on anything. It was just a free-for-all and sort of a green light for people just to dick over other people. So it was really frustrating, and I really did not like the Dark Zone at all. So The Division, understandably, is the second game on my list. Now, the first game on my list, and I'm sure many of you are not surprised by this, is No Man's Sky, or as I like to call it, No Man's Lie. Now, this was produced by Hello Games, and it came out on the 9th or 10th of August if you're in Europe last year. It's basically an action-adventure survival game, if you haven't heard of it, and it was supposed to be exploring 4 pillars of exploration, survival, combat and training in a procedurally generated open universe. Now, again, the hype around this game was so massive, and I was interested in this game. What we saw at E3 blew our minds. It looked incredible. The sheer variety and options and open world, open universe options to it. And I love the whole idea of being able to explore different planets and to sort of go down and colonize them and explore them. It seemed awesome, and we were promised a lot with the game. And the first 2 hours of this game were really fun and exciting. When you land on that planet and you have to figure out how to repair your ship, how to get off the planet, and the first time that you go into space and you hit that drive was exhilarating. It was exciting. But once you then get into the bulk and the meat of the gameplay, it becomes very apparent very quickly that this is not a AAA game, that it is an indie game that was overhyped and is hollow, and much of the gameplay was very repetitive, very boring. You keep going, go to planet, land, collect resources, replenish your suit, replenish your ship, fly up into space, go to another planet, do the same, collect resources, then maybe you go to a new galaxy, do the same, and so on and so forth. And it just became very repetitive. After you go to several planets as well, it's clear that a lot of the planets are sort of carbon copies of each other that are very familiar. Even the wildlife was a lot more boring than we had been shown in the trailers. And I think this is the main reason why people have a beef with No Man's Sky. And it's not the fact because of what happened with the game and what the game became, but actually it's because of a lot of the lies that were associated with No Man's Sky, and the fact that Sean Murray, in his interviews prior to the release of No Man's Sky, was asked so many questions about it, and on so many occasions actually outright point blank lied about the content and what the game was.
Will I get bored playing this game?
Sometimes.
Will I get bored playing this game?
No.
Boss! Will you be able to play with your friends?
Yeah.
Is there a competitive element to this game?
Yeah, if you want that, yes.
Can you grief other players?
A little bit.
Boss!
Do we ever get to see ourselves?
No, you don't see yourself, so the only way for you to know what you look like is for somebody else to see you.
Can you run into other people, other players on the game?
Yes, but the chances of that are incredibly rare, just because of the size of what we're building.
Boss!
Like here, we're at the boundary between 2 warring factions. I could join in, I could take sides.
Boss!
And I think it's that really pissed off the gaming community, because they had been promised all these things and then No Man's Sky did not deliver. And I think that is what really pissed people off, all the lies associated with it. Now, these were the 3 games that were the most disappointing this year. Now, there were more games, I'm sure, that were disappointing that you played, but these are the 3 that I played. And what I will say is 2016 has taught gamers many lessons, but one of the main lessons it's taught us, I think, is not to get too overhyped about games, because I think the problem we have sometimes now, especially with all the advertising and everything, we get so overhyped for a game, we buy into it and we pre-order it and we buy the season pass and we get excited and we get the collector's edition and the special edition and the digital edition and everything, and then it always inevitably we end up getting disappointed by it. So I think we really need to, I think gamers in 2017 will be a lot more careful on the kinds of games that they actually buy and play. And I think we've started to see indicators of that towards the end of 2016, where less people bought things like Titanfall 2, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. These games did not sell as well as they have done previously, and I think this is one of the reasons for it. And I'm going to call it the No Man's Sky effect, because that's what I think it is. I think a lot of the gaming community have become really tired of all these bullshit practices with overhyping a game, misadvertising, misrepresenting a game, selling a game that's not fully 100% complete, lacks content, hiding a lot of that content behind DLC, paywalls, season passes. And I think the gaming community now are starting to get clever to it and are starting to realize and starting to go, do you know what, this isn't right, this is unacceptable. So those were the games that were most disappointing for me in 2016. I'm hoping that we're not going to have too many disappointing games in 2017. I really do, but of course that remains to be seen. Now, I think especially going into 2017, with the fact that my money is a little bit tighter this year as well, I am going to be a lot more cautious about the games that I buy, and I don't think I'm going to pre-order many games like I have done in the past. I'm going to perhaps wait for some of them to see the reviews and see what people are saying, and then obviously go out and buy it. But obviously I want to review games for you guys as well, just to let you guys know whether the game is good or worth buying or not. But anyway, those are my thoughts on 2016. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What were the most disappointing games for you in 2016? Let me know below. Alright guys and girls, well, take care, and as always, happy gaming.